Or shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma. Hey guys, welcome to another podcast episode of the Resilient Warrior Nation. I'm your host, Mike Morgan. I'm very excited about my guest today, but as usual, just like to explain why I'm wearing this shirt. This is not a proclamation. This is the name of a company owned by a man named Eddie Penny. Eddie's a former Navy SEAL, Team 6 member, and I had no idea he was about to change the entire trajectory of my life as I sat down in the spring of 23 to watch a Sean Ryan podcast episode featuring Eddie. As Eddie was interviewed by Sean, he was recalling the Extortion 17 incident in which Chinook was shot down in Afghanistan, killing all 38 aboard, including 17 SEALs. It was their largest loss of community in one event ever. And as Eddie told the story, he got upset, rightly so. I simultaneously began thinking about a call that I buried 5 years before. I'm a 30-year retired police officer, and that call consisted of a 2-year-old that was found floating in a pool. Literally the one call in my 30-year career, I started to cry. But as I recounted this story and I was watching Eddie, I began crying like a baby. I had been retired at that time, almost a year, and I had been kind of going through some depression, anger, rage. Really was not sure what was the causation, but shortly after watching Eddie and putting two and two together, realized I'd suffered some sort of PTSD in my career, and as I know now, life. And it just got me thinking about the fact that I wanted to heal. I didn't want to live with this the rest of my life. I raised my hand, asked for help. In looking at treatment modalities, I really didn't think traditional therapy was going to do it for me in this particular case. I didn't have time to, essentially curate a relationship with a therapist for 5 years and hope that they were able to uncover what was going on with me. I had seen these mostly special force operators at this time talking on Sean's and other podcasts about healing with psychedelics and the immediacy that they found in terms of relief. So when I started doing my research, I found ayahuasca calling me, and I was able to change my life during a ayahuasca retreat in March of 2024. I was told by the universe that my PTSD was essentially healed. As we know, it's not a linear thing. I go through it like everyone else on a daily, but for all intents and purposes, that was healed. My life's purpose was to go forth and help other first responders and vets heal their trauma issues. I said, okay, out loud, having no idea how I was going to implement it at the time, but decided to create a podcast to do for others what Sean Ryan did for me. And in that, I bring on my guests and tell their stories, their highest of highs, their lowest of lows, in the hopes that you men and women who are going through it now hear their stories and get inspired. Number one, you're going to see you're not alone. Number two, you can see that they've healed. They're going to tell you they're literally their lowest of lows, and I know that a lot of you can identify with them, because as we go through these trials and tribulations, we all think they're alone, and that is the biggest misconception you can have. The second being that most other people haven't figured out. No one's got this shit figured out, I'm here to tell you. So with that, I'm excited to introduce my next guest. It is the first time I'm interviewing someone from the professional MMA community. He is Mark the Shark Irwin, highly decorated professional bare-knuckle boxer, former UFC MMA fighter, and former lightweight world champion, known for his relentless all-action fighting style, based in Huntington Beach, California. He is celebrated for his highly viral blood and guts slugfests. Outside the ring, Mark is the COO of Athletes Journey Home, a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising funds and awareness for scientific research using psychedelics to reverse traumatic brain injuries and PTSD in combat athletes. Mark has repeatedly stated that he fought each of his professional fights under the influence of Psilocybin. And I just welcome you to the podcast, brother. It's great having you on. We also, Mark and I, are in a psychedelic integration coaching course. Sometimes I have trouble saying that, brother. Called Being True to You. It's a phenomenal course. That's how we first started speaking. And it's incredible the caliber of people I've met in this course, in addition to Mark. So anyone who's thinking about getting into this realm, look up Being True to You. It is a phenomenal course. Mark, welcome to the show, brother. It's truly an honor to have you on here.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, brother. I was just going through podcasts and videos of your fight, and brother, you are one colorful character. I love it. March to the beat of your own drum. I love it. I just love guys who just literally do their own thing. You're not a follower. You are a leader, and you're very charismatic, very intelligent. I hear you speaking on our calls, on our breakout rooms, and unfortunately, people associate fighters with not that, but that is the furthest thing from the case. They're very super intelligent men and women who are in that field. So, brother, you're doing great work. I just want to congratulate you on everything you're doing.
You're very kind. I appreciate that, my friend.
Absolutely. So listen, let's start where it all began. You as a child, where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up?
Yeah, I was born in San Francisco, California. My family moved down to Southern California when I was young. I grew up in Orange County, California. Southern Orange County, nice, affluent neighborhood. Yeah.
And how were you as a child? I'm going to assume a high energy kid.
I was definitely a delinquent. I was a troublemaker. My parents had a real rocky marriage, and I think that affected me a lot as a kid. I started acting out in school, started getting in fights, abusing drugs and alcohol, got caught up in kind of a bad cycle that led to jail, court, rehab, detox, sober living, recovery homes, AA meetings over and over and over, right? A lot of drug and alcohol charges, a lot of, like assault charges, things like that. Just getting in a lot of trouble as a young man, really lacking guidance, I guess, and really crashed out. By the time I was like 20, 21 years old, I found myself at the world famous Charlie Street Detox in Costa Mesa, California. It's one of the world's only completely free 10-day detox. And I went through there, ended up in a men's hardcore recovery home in Anaheim, California, the Third Step House. I got sober for a long time. That's where I learned discipline, right? We had to be up at 5 a.m. every morning, make our beds, say our prayers, read the same pages out of the book with the guys, take 2 buses to work at a call center. That's where they'd get us a job. People would cuss us out all day long, tell us to go kill ourselves. Take 2 buses home, do your chore, take a bus to detox, try to counsel the guys coming off the street and get them to come live with us at their recovery home when they get out of detox. Take a bus back home. We'd have a meeting that night, raise our hands, say, hi, my name is Mark. I'm an alcoholic today to stay sober. I blah, 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 blah. I did that for a long time. And like I said, it instilled a lot.
Is there anything that kind of spurred you to stay sober at that point?
No, actually, after being sober for an extended period of time and getting back on my feet and saving some money up, I realized I actually just wanted to have a normal college experience. I wanted to go back to school, and do normal college stuff, have normal college experiences. And so that's what I did. I got into athletics. I joined the track and field team where I learned how to train like a professional athlete, and I got in really good shape. But ultimately, school wasn't really for me, so I ended up dropping out, and that's when I found fighting. Some friends of mine brought me to a boxing gym, and I took to it right away. I had a lot of fun training, and I've been...
And how old are you at this point, Mark?
I was in my early 20s. I was probably 22, 23 when I started boxing. I had my
You're
first
getting super late for a guy that ended up becoming a professional.
Correct. Yeah, I had my first amateur boxing fight when I was 24. Wow. Ended up winning a couple state championships as an amateur in my late 20s. And then it was in 2020 I started boxing professionally in Mexico, in Tijuana during the pandemic. My first boxing match.
Brother? You have to have story after story about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My first boxing match was in September of 2020 in Tijuana, Mexico, and it had to be outside. So they built a boxing ring in the parking lot of a baseball stadium, and then people would drive their cars up to the ring like a drive-in movie and sit on top of their car and watch the fights. That was my pro boxing debut. Yeah.
How'd you do?
It was great. I won. Racked up a couple wins in Mexico, and that's when I found bare-knuckle boxing. And I saw it on YouTube, and I watched a bunch of fights. And it was around that time I surmised that my skill set would translate well to the rule set that is bare-knuckle boxing. So I came up with a plan and set out to attempt to win a world title in bare-knuckle boxing. And I did that. It was one of the most exciting, fun, rewarding times of my entire life, getting to travel the country and fight on big stages. My coach was one of my favorite fighters when I was a young man, and I promised I'd win him a world championship. So to get to fulfill that promise to one of my former idols was very surreal. And yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I fought all of my professional fights under the influence of psilocybin mushrooms, or magic mushrooms, as they are better known as.
And what spurred you to do that? Today's episode is brought to you by Cutting Edge Testosterone Therapy, a veteran-owned, family-run clinic led by a retired first responder. At Cutting Edge, they help men and women rebuild strength, focus, and vitality through advanced hormone therapy, peptides, and performance-based weight management. Whether you've served your country, your community, or your family, Cutting Edge helps you get your edge back safely, professionally, and with people who understand what service takes out of you. Cutting Edge offers individualized care with no monthly fees or contracts. Learn more at cuttingedgetestosteronetherapy.com. Cutting Edge Testosterone Therapy, built by those who serve for those who still do.
Well, I started taking them initially because I had read that magic mushrooms were helpful for people who have suffered traumatic brain injuries. And having boxed, for over a decade, I had had a number of concussions. I don't even know how many. So I started using magic mushrooms to try and heal my brain. Ironically, it actually inspired me to turn professional.
Really?
Yeah. And
you don't hear that too often. How so?
Well, like you said, I started really late. I boxed throughout my 20s. I won a couple championships, but I didn't. I didn't have any aspirations to turn professional. I was very realistic about my prospects, and for all the reasons I told myself, it didn't make sense. I'm too old. I don't have enough experience. I'm gonna get hurt. I'm not gonna make any money. This, that, and the other. So I started using magic mushrooms to heal my brain, but it really shifted my perspective on life, and I decided that I didn't want to grow old and regret not doing it, right? Because I knew I could, and I let fear hold me back. And that's what it was, really. Like, I was afraid, and I attribute plant medicine to giving me the courage to pursue the things in life I really wanted to do, and it gave me the courage to be the person I always dreamed that I could be. So I started using magic mushrooms with my training and getting really good results. I decided I was going to use them in the fights as well. So my pro boxing debut, I took a microdose, had good results.
Okay.
With each subsequent fight, I started increasing the dosage. By the time I started doing bare knuckle boxing, I was taking very significant dosages, multiple grams. When I won the Knockout of the Year award in 2022, I took 5 grams of synthetic mushrooms that day.
Wow.
When I fought for the World Championship in 2023, I won. I had taken 7.5 grams of mushrooms that day. I was in the Fight of the Year award winner in my first world title defense. I took 7 grams of mushrooms that day.
Nuts, bro. I just did 5 over the weekend, and I cannot imagine banging out 7 and then getting in a ring with someone.
Well, to be fair, I didn't take it all at one time. I spread it out over the course of the day. So I would take a 1 gram synthetic gummy every 1 to 2 hours throughout the day until I would leave for the arena. So I wasn't peaking when I was on 5 grams or 7.5 grams or however much it was for each particular fight. I would space it out.
Okay.
But my overall consumption prior to the fight that day would be those totals I mentioned.
Wow. So let me ask you, before you started taking them, were you experiencing any type of cognitive deficits? Did you feel yourself kind of?
No, I would say that it's a huge performance enhancer, and that's why I was taking it, right? I used to give talks at festivals and seminars and events about the performative benefits of psychedelic mushrooms because I have a lot of experience in that department. Psychedelic mushrooms has a number of benefits. It improves your vision, right? So that you have, it increases your depth perception and visual acuity, so you can see things better. It helps you better enter what we call the flow state, right, where you're in your rhythm, you're in your flow, and you're creative, and you're firing on all cylinders, right? When you're heating up, like, it helps you get into that cadence a lot better. It increases creativity. One thing it does, it actually lowers an inflammatory marker in your brain that's associated with fight, flight, or freeze responses, right? So it helps you stay calm in high pressure situations. If your heart rate gets within a certain percentage of its maximum threshold, your ability to make decisions and execute motor functions goes down significantly. So staying calm and keeping your heart rate under control is important for being able to process information and make decisions on the fly. And so mushrooms are beneficial to all that end. I found that very large doses can help instill incredible amounts of confidence in myself. So I always tell people this anecdote. When I fought and I won the Knockout of the Year award in 2022, I took 5 grams that day, and that was the best I ever felt. And I can remember clearly, still to this day, the announcer doing the introductions before the fight and saying, and in the red corner, fighting out of Huntington Beach, California, Mark the Shark Irwin. And I'm thinking in my head, I feel like Godzilla right now. I feel like I can breathe fire out of my mouth and shoot laser beams out of my eyeballs and smash buildings with my feet. Right? I had that thought.
What a feeling.
And I went out there, the first punch I throw, boom, drops the guy. He gets up, throw a combination, boom, drops the guy. Gets up again, bang, big left hook. That's the Knockout of the Year award from the Hall of Fame. Nice. And it really put me on the map in the sport of bare-knuckle boxing. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to competing on magic mushrooms, but, I would say that taking quantities that high is probably not advisable. It took me several years to build up to that, developing my tolerance as well as my experience training and competing on these medicines.
Now, are you training on them every day? Or
not every day, but you can't use psilocybin every day or your tolerance will go through the roof.
Yep.
And you'll stop getting the benefits of it. So on certain days, like sparring days, where we're going live and hitting each other full contact, I would take psilocybin so that I'm getting comfortable fighting on plant medicine, because that's how I'm going to be performing. But as far as taking the dosages that I did when I started getting into those really high numbers, to be entirely honest with you, it wasn't so much about performative benefits. I was trying to push the boundaries of what was humanly possible, and I wanted to do something that I wanted to create a piece of sports lore that was very hard to believe. So I wanted to see how much I thought I could honestly take and still win and perform at a high level. I watched a documentary and I've read many reports about a famous MLB pitcher. His name was Doc Ellis, and he pitched a no-hitter in the 70s while on several hits of LSD. He mistakenly took the acid, not realizing he had to pitch that night, and then they called him into the arena. Yep. So he went down there and he pitched a no-hitter. Now, to be clear, he didn't pitch a perfect game. He hit several guys with balls. He walked a lot of guys. He was so high that nobody could hit his pitches. But it's a famous piece of sports lore that the guy achieved something incredible on an unbelievable amount of psychedelic plant medicine. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to carve out my own sports lore and take an unbelievable amount of magic mushrooms and win a world title in the most violent sport on earth, bare-knuckle boxing. And that's what I did.
Yes, you did, brother. It's amazing. I assume that the boxing commissions don't test for mushrooms.
The boxing commissions do not test for magic mushrooms. You actually cannot test for magic mushrooms. However, to be clear, I did not commit an infraction or a violation of any kind, okay? Because the combat sports are governed by the state athletic commissions. The athletic commissions have lists of banned substances that you are not allowed to take out of competition or in competition, right? It's all posted. It can vary from state to state. So some states allow cannabis, some do not. Psilocybin is not a banned substance on any banned substance list for any athletic commission worldwide. Therefore, it's not against the rules to take magic mushrooms. You are technically allowed to take as much as you would like, and it's not against the rules. So
Yeah, I didn't think it was because it was so public what you were doing that had it been, they obviously would have penalized you. Excuse me, when you entered the UFC, Dana White say anything about it to you?
you know what? I was not in the UFC. My coach was in the UFC, Ian McCall.
My bad, I apologize.
That's okay. He was a big UFC star. He fought in the first ever UFC flyweight fight. He had 2 incredible fights against the former inaugural UFC flyweight champion, Demetrius Johnson. But I really didn't become candid about my use until after my career. I was more closeted, if you will, about it, just because I didn't want any controversy to surround my name at the time. So it wasn't until after I hung it up that I really decided to become more open and forthright about my use of psilocybin and plant medicine in combat sports.
Okay. And your coach knew about it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he was on 5 grams in my corner when I won the world championship. And if you ask him, he'd tell you that we could communicate telepathically. I don't know if that's the case, but I will say one thing. I normally never hear my coaches yelling at me in the corner. And in round 2 of that fight, I got hit by a big punch that knocked me down and it closed my eye. And I heard my referee yelling at me, or my coach yelling at me what to do. And I got up and I won every round after that, and I won the fight and I won the championship. So that's the only time I can ever really remember hearing instructions from the corner.
That's amazing, bro. Truly is. So, all right, as you're going through the career, is there any amount that you took at one point and you're like, whoa, that was a little too much?
Yeah, I would say that 7.5 was too much. I can remember in that title-winning performance, my vision was getting really blurry and unfocused, and I attribute that to the medicine. But again, I was trying to take as much as I possibly could and still maintain. So I was really trying to push the threshold of what was possible.
That's amazing. So how many fights did you have overall in your pro career?
I had a short career altogether. I had 7 pro fights as a professional. I had a bunch of very famous award-winning fights. I had the knockout of the year, the fight of the year. Actually was also on the receiving end of the knockout of the year award in my 3rd and final world championship fight. I got knocked out, and it was the knockout of the year, so I've been on both sides of that. So win, lose, or draw, every fight I had was an award-winning, show-stopping performance, which I'm very proud of. But in doing so, I incurred a lot of injuries, right? Sure. In the fight of the year, I had a broken nose, broken jaw, and the worst hematoma in combat sports history.
I saw that.
Yeah, if you Google me, it's the first thing that pops up is my head swollen.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I got a blue check mark on Instagram because they wrote so many articles about it. Mark the Shark grows a second head at BYB 22. So I'm famous for brain injury, right? And that's when I decided to get more involved with my coach's nonprofit. At that point, he had been unable to raise any funding to conduct the research that he was setting out to do.
Okay.
Athletes Journey Home is a nonprofit scientific research group that provides psychedelic therapy to fighters and athletes who have suffered from traumatic brain injuries. He was a famous UFC fighter, and at the end of his career, he was struggling with drug addiction, which was a result of trying to manage his injuries. I think he had 7 surgeries while in the UFC. So he was addicted to opioids, lost all his money, right? Depressed, suicidal. And when your career is over, you don't have any work history or employable job skills. Most of these people didn't go to college, right? It's people that come from the school of hard knocks, so to speak. And so, he was really struggling, and he was able to get back to good health using psychedelics and peptides, and that's what motivated him to start Athlete's Journey Home.
And what year was that, Mark?
He founded this many years ago, but like I said, had been unable to raise any funding.
Right.
So after I had my injuries, it took a long time to recover. I had reconstructive jaw surgery, and in the lead up to the big rematch of the fight of the year, I used the platform to advocate for the nonprofit. So every podcast, every interview I did before and after the fight, I said the only reason why I'm coming back is to raise money for my coach's nonprofit, Athlete's Journey Home. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give and receive traumatic brain injuries to help heal traumatic brain injuries. And I went out there and I got knocked out, right? But as a thank you for all the blood, sweat, and tears that I donated to my former organization, our president, Mike Vasquez, shout out to Mike Vasquez, he wrote us a very large check, and that funded our first research project where we sent a number of high-profile athletes to Portland, Oregon for psilocybin therapy, myself included. We made Fox News 3 times, which we were really excited about. Nice. Our scientific team does data collection before and after, so we do brain scans, blood work, gut biome, saliva, and cognitive testing before, during, and after these treatments so that we can measure the results and prove the effectiveness of them. So far, we've had 4 retreats in total: psilocybin, ibogaine, and 2 ayahuasca retreats. Okay. All of the preliminary data has been incredibly positive. We've showed decreased inflammation in the brain, increased cognitive function, increased neural connectivity, decreased symptoms of PTSD, depression, anxiety. We see a lessening of asymmetry in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is associated with emotional regulation, right? So we literally got smarter and healthier. Our brains all got younger. We've had unbelievable results. I've seen a former UFC fighter that had Parkinson's have his symptoms reversed through plant medicine in real time. I've seen several athletes that had early-onset dementia and Alzheimer's have their symptoms reversed due to these plant medicine retreats. It's been absolutely life-changing to get to be a part of it and to witness firsthand the power of these medicines. And I truly believe that what I'm doing now is my life's calling, and everything that I did prior to this was just to get me to this point, right? And so I'm truly blessed. Now I get to travel the country and the world doing plant medicine with some of the greatest fighters and athletes on the planet and helping them heal from diseases and symptoms that were supposed to be incurable and terminal. And it's not the case. So I'm really excited for the data to come out. Our first research project is currently under peer review. Once that's done, the data will be published, and then people will be able to look up these results that we've been getting in actual scientific papers. So we're doing real scientific research, which for a knucklehead like me, a college dropout with brain damage, and I'm in charge of a scientific team, is
the inmates are running the asylum, brother.
Yeah, exactly. The inmates are running the asylum, 100%.
You know what, though? The inmates could be some of the smartest ones around. So
yeah, well, I don't know about that, but it's highly ironic, to say the least.
Yeah, I think it's hysterical. I know that you've worked with Dan Carcillo. Dan's been on the pod here before. Super nice guy. And what a story he had as well. Former NHLer, 2-time Stanley Cup champ. He was a brawler. I don't know how many. I think he got like
over 150 fights on the ice.
Yeah, something like that.
160-something, I think.
Yeah, they called him Car Wreck, I think was his nickname. And
Car Bomb.
He was a maniac. What's that?
Car Bomb.
Car Bomb, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you see some of his fights, he was the man you want on your side. He definitely sacrificed his body. And Dan, I think, had at age 31 a pre-dementia diagnosis prior to his journey with, I think he only journeyed with psilocybin twice before he saw those incredible results on the MRI before and afters of his brain.
Correct. Yeah, he runs Experience Onward in Portland, Oregon, where we had our first retreat. He's now opening a center in Denver, Colorado, and we're hoping to collaborate with him again on future retreats. So shout out to Daniel Carcillo if you're watching this. Love you, buddy. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He really is. Salt of the earth guy. I was actually just at a retreat this past weekend. You know Wiz Buckley?
I don't know him personally. I know of him. I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So Wiz and I are friends. He lives about a half hour away, and I told him after my Ibogaine, got out of Ibogaine about 12 weeks ago, and I'm like, brother, I need to be into medicine. I want to be to me, it's one of the most beautiful spaces you could be in life. And as you know, just people are healing from profound pain, but their healing is so beautiful to see.
Yes.
You know, you'll see some painful journeys that men and women are going through. They're experiencing and living through some of the worst things that you could possibly imagine. Sexual trauma, thank God, brother, I never experienced it. But the incidence of women, forget it. I think the estimate is like 40% of women have been sexually abused at some point in their lives. I'm going to say, I think it's 50% more than that. And men, I think they say it's 20%. I say double that. I've met so many men that have been sexually abused throughout their lives, whether it's, I know guys who've been sexually abused in the military, by their brothers, you know, being held down and having things thrust up their rectums in, you know, in bonding situations. Yeah, it's just insanity. And then obviously we're talking about kids who've been sexually abused. So the pain is profound that some of these people are going through, but the healing is just as profound.
Yeah, you know, they say that emotional trauma too can manifest itself in a very similar way as to physical trauma, right? So your brain really doesn't know the difference between, you know, extremely emotionally traumatic events and physically traumatic injuries. So, you know,
Exactly.
these medicines can help so many people, whether you've had a brain injury, whether you've been a victim of trauma and abuse, whether you're struggling with drug and alcohol addiction. There's a lot of different benefits that can be had from these medicines, and that's why it's so important to publish the data that we are on these different retreats and on the athletes that we're working with, because it's one thing if I tell you that I've had great benefit from these treatments. You know, you take that with a grain of salt. People lie, right? But if I can show you through peer-reviewed data, scientific medical facts, it's irrefutable, right? And that's what's going to help change these old, outdated, antiquated, draconian laws that currently govern psychedelics in America and worldwide, because these medicines were made by Mother Nature and Mother Earth to help heal humanity, and getting these old laws reversed so that we can make them more available to mankind, I think could really help change the world in a profound way.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, we are so brainwashed to believe that Big Pharma is the answer to everything. You know, my wife and I were talking the other day. If everyone was to drink Aya, this world would be a vastly different place. Wars would cease to exist immediately. You know, egos would be put to bed. They'd be dissolved around the world. And as we know, it's just a magic medicine. But, you know, I think it's hysterical that, and I don't mean in a funny way, I was at a vet and first responder only ceremony, and I was talking to this former Green Beret the following day. And he had been telling me that he journeyed for the first time a year before. Prior to that, he was on 11 medications, SSRIs, antidepressants, weaned off them as he was supposed to do prior to his first journey. Hadn't touched the medicine again in that year interim. Said he's found happiness for the first time. And he can't even remember how long. But I said, let me ask you a question. When you told your buddies back in the day that you were on 11 meds, I bet you no one batted an eye, right? He's like, no, not really. And the second you told them you were taking psychedelics, they probably all looked at you like you were out of your mind, correct? He's like, brother, you speak the truth. He's like, you start telling these guys psychedelics. He's like, I rarely talk about it, to be honest with you, because most people look at me like, you know, I have my head screwed on backwards.
Well, and that's the problem, right? The more that people remain closeted about their use, the less things are going to change, right? And that's why I try to be really open and forthright with my own use. I try to show that you can be a responsible adult and also make use of these medicines, right? I've been able to achieve great things. I won a world championship and several awards from the Hall of Fame while using these medicines, and I've also used them to help, heal injuries, right? Concussions, depression, PTSD, symptoms of brain fog, speech and memory issues. I've seen them cure unbelievable symptoms in others. But until we start talking and being honest about it, nothing's going to change. So that's why it's so important that people like yourself help spread the message on this podcast, social media, and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's incumbent upon us to tell our stories, to release that stigma, to expose others to these medicines. Frankly, I tell them sometimes, brother, and you know the deal. You could see right off the bat if someone's getting turned off by what you're throwing down, or they want more information. And, frankly, if I start telling someone about it and you could see they're not really interacting, I stop it. We're going on to another subject. I'm not trying to stuff it down your throat. If you want to hear about my experience, absolutely perfect. If not, it's not going to be something that I'm going to try and twist your arm about. You may come. When I first heard about it, I'll be honest with you, I was like, what? These guys doing drugs, man? Like special force operators? And then when my pain becomes so radical, I needed radical healing a couple years down the road, and I started paying attention and researching them. I was like, all right, man. These guys aren't hippies. Not that there's anything wrong with hippies. I'm half a hippie myself. But, Mark, I just saw today, I think it was in New York Post, there was a case study. It was this grandma, I think in England, another country, but she's got Alzheimer's, and they gave her 1 5-gram dose of psilocybin. She was nonverbal. And, I don't think it was advanced, but definitely in the intermediate stages. She started speaking, I think it was the next day, and she was smiling. Like, symptoms literally were reversed. Mind-boggling. She still has Alzheimer's, but I don't know if they're giving it to her periodically to see what's going on, but in one day, it was able to counteract that damage. So it shows you how potent these medicines truly are.
Yeah, and it shows you what a threat it is to the pharmaceutical industry, right? Because at the end of the day, the pharmaceutical industry is...
Oh, sorry about that.
Got a ghost in there. But like I was saying, the pharmaceutical industry is a business. Like your friend that was on 11 medications. He's being billed every single month, right, by the insurance company, which is in cahoots with the pharmaceutical industry, and they're both just laughing to the bank as they're charging him every single month for all 11 of his prescriptions. Is he on any prescriptions anymore?
Nope. No
now
prescriptions.
He's on 0. So they lost a customer. They lost actually 11 different, 11 different accounts there, 11 different prescriptions that they can charge him for every month, 12 times a month. So it's a business, and they're not in the business of healing anything. They're in the business of prescribing medications to treat and manage symptoms. And they don't even know how all of these different medications are going to counteract in your body, right? Because there's no double-blind studies done on somebody taking 11 different medications. Exactly. Your body wasn't designed by nature to take all these different medications. Your body was, however, designed by nature to use plant medicine, which is why we have endocannabinoid systems, why we have DMT in our brain that releases. Your body was designed for plant medicine.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, 11 is not the maximum I've heard. I heard one hospital, he was an Army Corpsman, he was on 17 at one point. And again, no one's looking at him like... he's got his head screwed on sideways. In fact, I don't know if you saw in a Signal chat, but, being true to you, one of our classmates put in kind of a picture of all the medications that he was prescribed at one point. And, again, it's accepted. No one's really going to say anything about it. But then, you talk about these medicines. It's amazing. Even though they've been around for thousands of years. That's the incredible part. They've been used safely. I crack up when they're asking for more studies to be done to see about the efficacy and safety of these medicines. Like, no, we don't need that. They've been used for thousands of years already.
Yeah, and they're deeply embedded in a lot of the cultures where they originate from, right? I was fortunate enough to get to do ayahuasca in the jungle of Colombia with Colombian shamans and very traditional South American heritage to this plant medicine. It was a beautiful ceremony. It was honestly one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life. I'm so blessed to be able to have access to these types of retreats and these medicines. And again, that's why it's so important that we make it available to everybody.
Oh, it truly is. I mean, it's so sacred. I love the ceremony, the ceremonial space about it. It's just, I don't know, it's deeply touching to me. It's not something that you're going to do on a Friday night to get high. That's one huge misconception. People think, these are drugs, number one. They think you're going to get euphoric effects. No, this is not euphoria. This is actually some profound pain that you're going to be processing a lot of times. People take it for higher consciousness as well, but a lot of times it's not an enjoyable experience, correct?
Yeah, it can definitely be difficult. And I've seen firsthand people really go through it. In the last year, I've been fortunate enough to get to go through 3 different ceremonies with 3 different medicines. Psilocybin in April of last year in Portland, Oregon. I did ibogaine therapy in Cancun last November, and we did ayahuasca in Colombia January, February. And these medicines have had a really significant effect on my mentality, my well-being, excuse me. I feel like they've really reset my central nervous system. I have found a level of calm that I don't think I've ever experienced. And I attribute that to the plant medicine helping to heal a lot of trauma that I've been through in and out of the ring in life. And it's helped me to forgive and accept a lot of things. Right, it's a truly beautiful medicine, and I couldn't say enough good things about it. But if you haven't experienced it, it's really hard to conceptualize, I think, these sort of experiences. Yeah.
Can you talk about, and I agree with everything you said, can you talk about your ibogaine experience, like what results you found afterwards? Because it seems like everyone wants to know about ibogaine these days.
Yeah, ibogaine was incredible. Myself and several other athletes, combat sports athletes and rugby athletes, we went to the Beyond Center in Cancun and we underwent ibogaine therapy. I myself was struggling from symptoms of brain fog. I was struggling with issues with speech and memory, emotional regulation, and after doing ibogaine, immediately I felt significantly more clear-headed. I felt like my speech and memory was improved dramatically. I was thinking and speaking faster than I had in years. I had people constantly telling me that I look and sound different after coming back. That was where we were able to reverse symptoms of Parkinson's in a former UFC fighter. Wow. Myself and my business partner, Ian, we had to literally help walk him through the airport at certain times, getting down there because of his tremors, right? And now, still to this day, he's tremor-free, no symptoms of Parkinson's. He's been completely cleared on all his scans. His neurologist couldn't believe it. Prior to ibogaine therapy, he said his neurologist told him that they were going to have to wait until they performed his post-mortem autopsy, and then they would cut the top of his head off and remove it so that they could look inside his brain and more accurately diagnose exactly what was misfiring and malfunctioning in his brain. And they truly could not believe it. Afterwards, symptom-free, they told him that he never has to come back. He went from like 10 medications to 1 medication. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable results. And to experience that, for me to witness that firsthand has been really life-changing, for myself as well.
Was that immediate? Like literally the next day on his gray day, he was symptom-free essentially? Wow.
He came out of his flood dose, and his shakes were very, very bad, non-stop. And he actually said he was afraid that he had made it worse. And my coach said, all right, we're going to do some breath work. And we did a couple deep inhales and exhales. And after the last breath, it all just stopped. And he was completely steady. And he was looking at his hands, and they weren't shaking. And he hasn't shook once since. All week, I would catch him during the retreat. I'd look over at him, You'd just be doing this.
I can imagine.
Couldn't believe it.
Wow. Bro, I can't imagine how you guys felt seeing your buddy going through that. That's
And imagine how
life-changing.
he feels.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. That's like literally like the hand of God coming down and touching you and be like, you're healed.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
And he's been very open about it. He said 2 days before we left, he was this close to driving his Tesla into a brick wall at full speed with his seatbelt off because he was so depressed and heartbroken. His neurologist told him that there was nothing they could do. He didn't think that the treatment was going to work. He said he didn't want to waste our time and our money. And thank God he didn't, because he's now a scientific and medical miracle and living proof as to the healing powers of these medicines. And through this process, like I said, it's been very life-changing for me. I've gained a real friend and a brother in Michael Guyman. So shout out to my buddy Joker. I'm blessed to be able to call him a dear friend, and very fortunate to have him and people like him in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. So listen, when his neurologist found out about the results, did they want to bring him on board and start doing studies and, did this really intrigue them, or they were like dismissive of it?
So, no, they weren't dismissive. He had us on Zoom on his phone so that we could be in the room with him while he was in there. Although we weren't with him physically, we were able to sit in the office and watch what was happening during his appointment. And his doctors couldn't believe it. They said, Michael, how did you do this? We don't believe this. You did Ibogaine. We want to do Ibogaine. They said, you don't need to come back here. We don't ever want to see you again. Get out of here. Have a good life.
Wow. Brother, that's crazy. I thought possibly symptom reduction, but just total
Symptom-free.
symptom. Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Unfortunately, I have a family member who's got it, but he had the electrodes implanted, so I don't think that he's able. Well, I know we've researched that he's not able to take Ibogaine after that procedure was completed. But man, that is mind-boggling to me. It's so funny that happened, and you don't hear about it. Like, you should hear about that everywhere.
Yeah,
Mainstream media should be picking up on that, brother.
it's almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
But again, this is a huge threat to one of the biggest industries worldwide. So it doesn't surprise me that you're not hearing more about it. And again, there's been so much manipulation through mainstream media, right, to try and brainwash people against these types of medicines. And that's why it's so important that people like yourself and myself speak up so that we can help change the conversation around psychedelics.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Just had a great question that escapes me right now. But so, what are you doing now on the day-to-day in terms of working with your organization, your foundation, and fighters?
So we have more retreats coming up this year. Our next one officially on calendar is going to be ayahuasca at the La Huayra Retreat Center in Colombia. It's going to be in September. We're taking MMA fighters and athletes to the jungle to do more healing and more data collection. We're really excited about that. When we're not.
Now, is
doing
this invite only, or if an MMA athlete is watching right now, can he get in touch with your foundation and be included?
They can get in touch with us and they can get signed up. We're currently looking for athletes who want to be involved in the treatment and the research. So we're really excited about our upcoming retreat. When we're not hosting retreats, we have fundraisers. We travel to different events. Last week we were at Subversive in San Diego at the Hard Rock Hotel, a big jiu-jitsu competition. We had a booth there for the nonprofit. We also had two athletes of ours that were competing. Shout out to Jared and my girl Jackie. They both went out there and competed. It was a lot of fun watching them out there on the mats. This weekend we're going up to San Jose. My old friend Cain Velasquez is having a breathwork ceremony, so we're going to reunite with him, film some content for the nonprofit, and promote his breathwork seminar. It will be great to catch up with him. He's gotten very involved with our nonprofit and plant medicine through his own healing journey. So excited to see him. We regularly host UFC Fight Night watch parties at a local bar and restaurant, OC Local Tap Room in Laguna Niguel. Our next fundraising event is going to be June 14th. We're watching the UFC White House card at OC Local Tap Room.
Nice.
So if you're in the Orange County area, you want to come down and watch the fights with myself and some UFC fighters and help raise money for traumatic brain injury research, June 14th, UFC White House card at OC Local Tap Room.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually won tickets for that show. It's like an 85,000 seat arena or stands or whatever that they're erecting across from the White House supposedly. So I don't think we're going to make it, but I was like, figures. One time I won something and we're not going to be attending, but dude, that's going to be some show.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
That and then McGregor card the following month. I can't wait to see either. Oh my God. I had a great question that is still escaping me right now, but as soon as we get finished, I'm sure it's going to pop up in my head. Oh my God, I can't believe it, bro. I had a great one, but I'm forgetting right now. I apologize. Also, would you ever think about opening up your own facility, treatment facility down the line? Is that something you guys would ever entertain or not really?
Yeah, we're definitely interested in pursuing those sorts of things right now. As you mentioned, I'm currently going through integration coaching so that I can start providing that service in-house to the athletes that go through our different retreats to help them set expectations, set their intentions, and work through any issues that might come up during their psychedelic journeys and afterwards. As far as having our own retreat center, getting grant funding is paramount in order to continue the research and the treatment that we're doing. But it's certainly something we would be interested in. It's not anything that we have specific plans for underway currently, but never say never.
Right. Great point. That'd be fantastic. Bro, I can see that banner hanging, man. MMA Fighters, healing retreat. That'd be a beautiful thing. How was it received when you were in the gym and telling guys about psychedelics? Are they kind of weary, or they see your success and just like full on? Talk to me. Let me hear about it.
Psychedelics are definitely really popular, especially with the younger generation. They're very popular with athletes and fighters. There's a lot of athletes and fighters that are microdosing in training or microdosing in competition. I don't know anybody that's taken as much as I have. But it's certainly growing in the athletic and combat sports community. So people are pretty receptive to it. Myself and my coach, we have a podcast ourselves to help promote the work that we're doing with the nonprofit, the research, and the treatment and everything else. So
that's fantastic, brother. All the work you guys are doing. Just as my buddy says, Wiz Buckley says, putting a ladder down for others. So it's beautiful to see that you got help for yourself and then turning around and just carrying the torch, bro. I love seeing it. It's truly a beautiful thing. And, for those of you who are going through it, listen, number one is you have to be honest with yourself. And number two, the word vulnerability gets thrown around a lot, but I think as men, we're always told that it's weak to show vulnerability. And I think that is a huge step in the healing journey, is to allow yourself to become vulnerable. And if you need help, raise your hand and ask for that help, because it doesn't take strength to stuff it down, to hit your wife, to get in a bottle, to get in pills. I had an opioid addiction myself. I went to rehab in 2012. I had a first marriage going south. Bad family dynamics between them and my family and I, my family and them, my ex-wife. And I kind of fell into that myself. So actually raising your hand and acknowledging the fact you need help is a sign of absolute strength. And that's what warriors do. It's not burying this stuff and, going on for years and years thinking that it's weakness to get help like you and I have done. So, I know that's like a huge message that we have to get to these other, especially alpha males that have been taught it's the opposite.
Yeah, it takes strength in order to be vulnerable. Right, in order to let your guard down and to expose yourself actually takes a great deal of strength.
Yeah, 100%. All right, brother. Anything else that you want to talk about or plug?
I think that's it. You guys can go to athletesjourneyhome.com for more info. You can also go to donate to find out about upcoming retreats and upcoming events that we have. You can find me on social media on Instagram at @MarkTheSharkIrwin. Our Instagram is at Athletes Journey Home. We also have our podcast, Athletes Journey Home, on Spotify. Our latest episode with Chito Vera from the UFC is up now. I appreciate you having me on, brother. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. God bless you.
On. All the links will be in the bio as well. I will see you in class soon. Guys, I hope you liked what you saw. It was fantastic talking to Mark. And Mark, I wish you the best, brother.
Thank you, brother. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Oh, shot fired, officer down, shot fired, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fired.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma.